With the USS Higgins happened just a few days ago, where a United States vessel was expelled from the South China Sea near
the name that China uses for the Scarborough Shoal. It is a disputed region claimed by both China and the Philippines.
Imagine sailing into one of the most contested patches of ocean on Earth when suddenly a voice crackles over the radio. U.S. warship, you are in Chinese waters. Leave immediately. But here's the problem. That warning just went out to the wrong ship. The USS Higgins wasn't just another vessel. It's an Aegis-powered destroyer designed to track hundreds of targets and launch multiple missile strikes simultaneously. So why was Beijing's move a massive miscalculation? And how did this confrontation silently change the balance in the South China Sea? Stick with this story and find out.
The American warship, the USS Higgins, illegally entered China's territorial waters off the Huangyan Island.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. How does a voice on the radio turn a routine patrol into a geopolitical standoff? It begins with a simple transmission, a Chinese vessel hailing the USS Higgins and warning it that it had entered what Beijing claimed were Chinese waters. But the contest was never about location alone. The reef that triggered the exchange lies hundreds of miles from China's mainland and well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
Heads in the West Philippine Sea, the waters off the Philippines that Beijing claims is a part of the South China Sea.
According to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, that stretch of water is recognized as belonging to Manila's jurisdiction. Yet Beijing insists it holds sovereignty because of its sweeping claims across most of the South China Sea. Washington, on the other hand, does not acknowledge those claims. To the U.S., transit through these contested areas is part of routine freedom of navigation patrols, demonstrations that international sea lanes remain open for all. What came across as a few stern words over radio was in fact the collision of two irreconcilable worldviews. China has long leaned on direct, in-your-face tactics to enforce its position. Patrol vessels regularly shadow American warships in these disputed zones. They crowd them by closing the distance to just a few hundred yards. They speed up aggressively on intercept courses. They repeat warnings loud and clear, with the expectation that such displays will make a foreign crew defer and change course. Often this approach works when directed at smaller ships or nations without the backing of a global navy. The strategy is designed around pressure, stacking up the immediacy of risk until the opposing vessel finds it safer to withdraw. But this time the tactics met something entirely different. Waiting inside the calm hull of the U.S. destroyer was not a nervous command team, but the crew of an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, a vessel constructed from the keel up to endure high-stress environments. The Higgins carried the Aegis combat system. More than just a set of weapons, it's the brain designed to manage overwhelming numbers of threats simultaneously.
China has demanded that the United States effectively restrain its forces and cease all provocative actions in the South China Sea.
Each radar sweep did more than track surface contacts on the horizon. Its SPY-1D phased array radar gathered information from hundreds of miles out and processed hundreds of targets at once. Aircraft, ships, even low-flying missiles hugging the sea surface. Most frigates or corvettes in the region could only manage a handful at one time. This capability created a shield of awareness that made the Chinese attempts at crowding not a danger, but an exercise in futility. On top of sensing came firepower. The Higgins wasn't patrolling light. Within its launch cells sat Tomahawk cruise missiles, able to strike land targets with precision hundreds of miles away. Its standard missile twos could intercept high-altitude aircraft and incoming ballistic threats. For closer engagements, the ship carried evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, tailored for fast, low-flying anti-ship missiles. Harpoon anti-ship missiles offered a reach to hit enemy vessels well beyond the visible horizon. And if anything slipped through, the close-in weapon system, essentially a radar-guided, rapid-firing Gatling gun, waited as the last line of defense. Each weapon filled a gap, overlapping with the next, creating layered rings of protection. It meant that even if a Chinese vessel had chosen to escalate beyond warnings, the chances of success were extremely thin.
The name that China uses for the Scarborough Shoal, it is a disputed region claimed by both China and the Philippines.
The confrontation highlighted a deeper difference. China tried to generate risk through proximity, forcing sudden choices that could lead an opponent to back down. But the crew of the Higgins applied U.S. naval doctrine instead. They maintained steady speed, steady course, and clear communication without taking the bait of aggressive maneuvers. By doing so, they refused to create the conditions for a collision or a panic response. This left the Chinese side pressing buttons that no longer worked. Their strategy depended on the fear of escalation. Yet in the face of a ship designed to control escalation through superior detection and firepower, the tactic faltered.
The statement comes following the expulsion of the US destroyer Higgins by Chinese military for allegedly entering territorial waters.
Far from forcing the American destroyer to turn away, the encounter achieved the opposite. Each aggressive approach underscored the credibility gap. One side leaning on intimidation, the other calmly pressing forward with overwhelming control of the tactical picture. The confrontation did not end in explosions or ramming, but its message was clear. The Chinese warning aimed to project dominance, but instead highlighted the limits of their leverage against this particular opponent.
It added that the US is defending its right to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows.
And while the reef itself was nothing more than coral, sand, and disputed square miles of sea, the exchange revealed a far larger truth. This was not simply about one ship passing through one zone. It was about how far a nation can stretch its claims and how another, equipped with both law and force, can resist them.
With the USS Higgins happened just a few days ago, where a United States vessel was expelled from the South China Sea near.
What was supposed to be a show of strength turned into a demonstration of imbalance, and the implications of that imbalance continued well beyond the waves lapping against the reef's edge. This wasn't about coral or sand. It was about who sets the rules of the sea in the century ahead. The Higgins showed that hardware and training can blunt intimidation, but the deeper contest was legal and political. Each encounter at sea becomes a test, either of a crew's discipline, a ship's systems, or the reach of international conventions. The danger lies in how easily one wrong calculation can shift from deterrence to open conflict. So ask yourself, when the next challenge comes, will the deciding factor be nerves, machines, or laws? And how thin is the line that separates them?